Well, I am on day 2 of my postseason scouting. It's about 9:30. I'm going to get a late start again this morning. The area that I had chosen to go to, the National Forest Road, was shut off, and some private land people had it gated off because the state, I guess 10 years ago when we had the financial crisis, they started cutting off and gating off and stopping the state maintenance of some of the national forest roads, and I think that's probably what happened in that area, which kind of sucks because I had high hopes for it. I was going to go across the creek, up over a mountain, and check out what I thought was going to be some good bedding on the other side. But now I've got a lot of backups always when I plan a trip like this so that I'm not wasting gas. So this is one of my backup areas. And always my first problem on the National Forest is finding a pull-off, kind of near where I want to go so I don't have to walk so far down the road before I start hiking. And there's a pull-off right here. So I'm going to get out, get in the woods, get started, and hopefully get a lot of ground covered today before dark.
We got fresh tracks right in the trail. It's a good sign. That's what I call a heavy trail. All the tracks I've seen so far are going up onto these ridge tops behind me. There is ag fields back over this way on private. That tells me the deer are bedding up here on this ridge to my right. So far I'm loving the amount of deer sign that I'm seeing. It's a lot more than I was seeing yesterday. It's a real sinkhole right there. You wouldn't want to fall in there. Right now I am following a rub line. It's heading towards the agricultural fields. There's a lot of rubs in here. Well, I just came onto an illegal bait spot. If I walk any closer, whoever's got this illegal corn pile is going to get my picture. This is not the first time this has happened to me on the National Forest. Probably a stand in here somewhere, but we're still on the public right now. Check this out. There's a ton of rubs around that bait pile too. But bait piles, as far as I know, are illegal even on private land. Definitely on public. And I am standing squarely on public right now. Now that was a real bait pile right there. No wonder there were so many trails leading back in here. This is probably somebody coming off a private and baiting back here. But as close as we are to horse trails and stuff, you think they wouldn't do that. But guess they don't care. Getting near private land, the line should be up here. Oh, I see it. It's 50 yards up through here. So this is legal to hunt still. That's going to the ag field. The tree I picked out was right there in that stand of poplar, I guess, where I'll have a little bit of cover. Or maybe I could get up in these right here. There's a heavy trail going to the ag fields. This is an unbelievable deer population here. Definitely gonna probably back up off these fields and look for some good spots that are further away where the bucks are gonna hang out. Looks like a good track right there. So I walked up, I'm about 20 yards from the private land line, and I want to walk up here and see what kind of food source this was. And it's corn right now. It's cut corn. Next year probably be soybeans, something like that. Either way, you know, if they rotate these crops, either way it'll be good. Soybeans, or I guess soybeans would be better early season, which is most likely probably what it'll be. So this might be a great early season bow area if they plant soybeans in here. The deer will just love that early season. Now this is an inside corner around the back end of an ag field. This is rare in Virginia. During rifle, I'm sure there'll be 15 people sitting here. But during bow, maybe not. But it's public to right here about 5 feet in front of me. So it's legal back behind me and all the way around the corner. It's a great stand, but I saw 3 or 4 other heavy trails coming off and going to this knoll behind me. And I already had that knoll marked to scout out. So that's where I'm headed, back up the hill. But look at this ag. It's good stuff.
So a lot of turkeys have been in here. That's good. So far I had not seen any turkey scratching. And this close to ag fields, I figured there'd be a healthy population. Turns out there is. Might be a good place to come back late season next year. Sure to be crowded opening day. Got some fresh turkey sign. They've been in here today. They've been in here today or yesterday. There's a rub. Not fresh, but that tells me the deer are using this. And there's kind of a drainage right here. Ag fields that way. There were some trails coming around across here. I figure you could set up a tree stand about where that one is, right there. So I walked right by that. So somebody's got a tree stand put up permanently right there. So the first place I scouted was behind this ag field right here. It was ended up being cut corn, and you know, if they rotate the crops, maybe it will be soybeans next year. This would be a good area to come in early October, first week of bow season, and sneak in here in the evening when you got the thermals in your favor, going out onto the ag field and either a west, southwest, or south wind, and get in here and see which of these 3 stand locations had the most fresh early buck sign on it. And I'd probably give that a sit or two around the edge of that ag. It's going to hold a lot of deer in this area, and when there hasn't been a lot of pressure like that first week of October, you could catch a buck down here next to this ag field. So I might actually try that this coming season. There were no permanent stands right along the edge. There were a lot up on the mountain, but there weren't many right on the edge here. So I would probably feel confident coming back there and at least putting a little bit of meat in the freezer. I know you could kill a doe in the evening right here, and you know, those first couple sits, who knows, you might get lucky and take a buck. Got a very fresh rub here, but an up and coming youngster has made this. This rub starts about 8 inches from the leaves, so it's done very low to the ground. It's a small tree. Big bucks can rub small trees, but most likely this was a young deer that done it. One of the places I have marked to hunt is up on top of this, at the point on top of this ridge. So I'm gonna kind of follow the sign, follow the fresh sign if I see buck sign like this, all the way to where I'm going. Heavy trail going right where I want to go. Good sign. Now I'm definitely getting into some bedding. This is where the thicket meets the open hardwoods. There'll be deer bedding in here. I can already see a couple small rubs up in front of me up here. But I'm getting close to where I wanted to scout. The point is right up here. Now I've got a real trail intersection going into the bedding. Ag fields are back this way. I was following a trail going up this way to the point over here. I run into all this bedding. And that's, you know, this edge is called a transition line. And one trail is following the transition up to the point up here. There's another trail going around into the bedding back there. This would be a good spot morning or evening. In the mornings, if you can sneak up here real early, you could catch some of the lazier deer getting back from the agriculture fields down here, because it's about a half mile to them, but you could catch them in daylight right here.
this would be an even better evening stand. Slip in here, get up one of these trees, and wait on them to come back out towards the ag fields. It should be a good staging area and a good area, especially for me filming, a good area where I'll have camera light when some of these deer come down through here. Well, it's probably a pretty good buck that did that. He's ripped some limbs off. Broke it right here. You see his horns hit it there, right along the edge of bedding thicket. I'm gonna move up above. I found a stand behind me. That guy might only hunt it once or twice a year, or he may be dead for all I know and just left a stand in here. But there's a point right up here above me, another point I want to scout out. I'm just gonna move on a little further and hope there's no tree stands up there. Okay, I'm positive I'm onto a good buck now. Little bucks don't make those kind of rubs. He has just shredded that, and it's fresh. Those leaves are not wilted that are on the ground. Got some heavy trails leading in to this bedding area. That buck is probably bedded back over in here. This is a good place to catch him in the evenings coming down. I'm sure that guy's got his picture on his camera. But look, this is got to be pretty fresh. This second weekend in January. When I was moving areas this morning, I filmed two young 2-year-old bucks nudging and bothering a doe in a private field. But now I find this, and this is a fresh rub. So it looks like the bucks are still a little feisty, even in the middle of January. So I've moved back a little further. I'm getting into some really thick, good laurel bedding. And I'm going to move back out. Pick a tree right over here up the hill, where I can shoot down into this thicket and shoot across the ridge that way. It's a little more open on the ridge that way. Probably less deer will come through. But if a hot doe comes through, she may come through over there. So maybe even a cruising buck comes straight up and down the ridge, but I don't see that a lot. I see it some. This tree right here has got great cover. Probably get up in it. It's even a short bow shot down here to where that sign and those trails are going into the bedding area. And I'll be able to see up on this ridge behind me, so they may come around behind me through here. But that's a good stand, and there's no other stands right here that I see right now. I'm kind of going to be up above that other guy. Most likely he's not going to be in here at the same time as me anyways. But this is a good find right here. This is a good solid setup. You have bedding behind you. You've got this kind of point on this finger ridge coming down from the main ridge going towards ag. It's a good setup. Got a good tree. They probably won't see me out of that tree. It's kind of got a little pine behind it. So, you probably wouldn't get a lot of shots behind me up the hill with a bow because I've got some pine. But good shots down the hill. And it's a good stand. If this is the only good stand I find on the whole trip, the trip will have been worth it. So the second area I found while scouting that I liked was this point on this finger ridge right here. That this finger ridge leads down to the ag fields that I'd previously looked at. And what I found was that the whole western side of this finger ridge was one big laurel bedding thicket. There were a whole lot of trails coming out going towards the ag fields and a lot of fresh rubs and stuff there as well. So I would feel really comfortable coming in here in October and coming in the evening and hunting this on either a west, southwest, or south wind with the thermals dropping down behind me. Being right up next to the laurel thicket like that give me a really good chance of seeing a buck in the daylight as he comes out of the bedding area going towards the ag field. So that was a pretty good find, and I might actually try that this October and see if it works for me. Another tree stand. Gonna have some competition in here. Looks like they've chopped down some trees to get them out of their way. The guy that set that tree stand wanted to see what was behind him, and he's just just chopped limbs down everywhere. There's another big pine right here. He's chopped all the lower limbs off. Right here. Not the kind of behavior you want to see out of people on the National Forest. Here's some more trees that have been chopped down over here. And that's kind of fresh. There's a good scrape with almost no leaves in it. Yeah. It's not 20 yards from that tree stand over there. And fresh, clumpy deer droppings all along this trail. So that explains why he cut those tree limbs down. There are a lot of deer funneling through here. Stands everywhere. That was quite a few male birds. I don't know what their beards look like. Could have been a group of jakes for all I know, but I don't know, it's 4 or 5 birds. I'm always scouting for turkeys. Well, that's probably the most expensive National Forest tree stand I have seen on the forest. The problem with this section of the National Forest is there's a lot of horse trails in here through this whole southwest section of Virginia. Tons of horse trails. So these guys are probably bringing these stands in using horses and then leaving them in all year and then using horses to get back in here and hunt. It's unfair to the rest of us to leave these in here all year long. Rarely do these guys take them back out. When they get done hunting them, normally they leave them. They just leave them. This one right here probably get taken back out when he's done hunting because it's a nice stand. That's an expensive stand. This guy's cut down large trees to make shooting lanes. Large trees. This guy's even got it where you can't climb up in it. Real nice example of a scrape. All these overhanging branches have been bit off. Really good example because there's just branches bit off everywhere. Right down the hills, that tree stand. It's in a good spot. So I'm on the way out and I have found a really good scrape area. Every single limb is bitten off. There's 1, 2, 3 scrapes. And the craziest thing about this spot is there's not a pre-placed ladder stand in it. So I'm gonna mark this one down. If I do come back in here during gun or muzzleloader, then this is probably the stand I would come to. When every other single scouting point already had a stand in it, my last one didn't. That's at least a little bit of luck. I would feel real comfortable early November coming and setting up right here. Maybe set up in one of these trees where I can see this scrape from 50 yards away, but also see down the mountain pretty good. So I'm picking a tree right on the point. I can see 360 degrees around this stand, and it's pretty thick, so I like that. It's not so open that I feel like a buck won't be in here during the daylight. But here's the tree. I'll probably get up, one of these right here, and probably face back behind me up the mountain. So this scrape area that I found was right here on this point right here. And one of the reasons I think this scrape area was there is it was one of the only areas on this whole mountainside that didn't have a lot of pre-placed tree stands in it. I think most of the deer felt comfortable there, not a lot of human activity right here in this area. So I think probably the first week in November would be a great time to hunt something like this when they're really hitting those scrapes. Come in here with a muzzleloader, and I picked a tree right on the point that was kind of up above everything.
I had a really good view, 360 degrees around me, and I think I would probably come in there that first week of muzzleloader and sit all day and have a reasonable chance of success, especially right there before evening when bucks are getting up, stretching their legs, and heading down towards the ag fields down here. The chances of them coming by and stopping by those scrapes is pretty high.
I am about 200 yards from where I just marked a tree stand at that scrape area, and I've got a very fresh rub here. Fresher than any rub I've seen so far. This deer probably made it through the season. Well, this wasn't hunted this year. It's filled in with leaves, but that's an interesting technique. I've never experienced this technique before on the National Forest. We have what looks like it was another bait pile. Camera right here. So they've got my picture, unless the batteries are out. Doesn't matter to me. I'm on public land. But that is not supposed to happen on public. It's about 100 yards down from the other, from that ground stand up there. So I found a buck bed on the way out. I'm getting back near the truck, and this is the first buck bed I've found on the whole trip, so I wanted to document it and show it and kind of show you what he sees from his bed. But here it is. This is where he's bedding. He's surrounded by 6-7 foot pine. He's probably 500 yards up on a ridge, on a little knoll here. There is rubs all the way around this bed. Now they're not big rubs, but they are rubs. But laying in the bed, you know, this is what he sees. He can't see far, but if anything comes behind him from over here, that's the main wind direction. So he can smell anything coming in behind him around the mountain. And he can't really see anything, so he doesn't have very good observation. I just wanted to show that to you because it's the first one I've found on this trip. To me, it looks like a 2-year-old buck's been bedding here. There are no big rubs around it, just small rubs, but definitely a buck bed. It's by itself, in good cover. This is just the way they like to bed on these mountainsides. It also looks like he's bedding here some. Now none of this is fresh, so this deer may be dead, but he's just bedding here on a different wind direction than he was bedding over here. That's where the other bed is in those pines. He's over 20 yards, and there's another bed here. It's probably the same buck bedding in both spots, and he's just bedding on a little different wind direction. He'll move over and bed right here, but like I said, this deer's not bedding here anymore. He may be dead. But I wanted to show it to you because it's the only buck bedding I've found on this trip.
So this last spot that I found while scouting, I was actually almost back to the truck. It was right about here where the buck bedding was. And that to me looked like a good spot to catch a buck early season coming back to his bed in the morning. There was a heavy trail coming from the ag fields, coming across this mountainside right here, going to the beds. I think I could set up below that trail. You might be on about eye level with the deer by the time he gets on the trail above you. But I think you could actually catch a buck if he's bedding there. You could catch him coming back in the morning and get a shot on him before he gets back into that little pine thicket right there. But we see this a lot when we find parking areas. We'll find a good parking area, and really one of the first places I'll check is the ridge overlooking the parking area. And that little ridge was the closest ridge to the parking area. So the buck, although he didn't have good observation here, there was small pines around him, he could hear anybody pulling up and parking down below him. So that might be a good spot to try to kill one early season. I'd probably go back in there and check and see if he was bedding there in September or something, and then come back in 2 or 3 weeks later and try to kill him like that.
So that wraps up my first postseason scouting trip of the season. I hope you enjoyed it. These videos are specifically made for some of you out there that have contacted us and requested us to
do some scouting videos. For some of you older guys that know it all already, this series is not for you. Maybe you ought to skip these and wait for turkey season or deer season to watch any more videos. But I hope this really helps some of you guys out there that are just getting into hunting. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next trip.